In this video, I'm going to explain the main ideas of the psychoanalytic perspective and the behaviorist perspective. I'm going to try and keep it brief because both of these topics get covered in much more detail later in the course. Alrighty, first up is the psychoanalytic perspective. When most people think of psychology, they think of things like talk therapy, where the person is lying on the couch, and they probably think of people like Sigmund Freud. Freud was the founder of the psychoanalytic perspective, and it primarily focused on the unconscious mind and the role of early childhood experiences in shaping behavior and personality. According to this approach, human behavior is driven by unconscious motivations, such as sexual or aggressive impulses. He also thought our behavior was influenced by conflicts between different parts of the psyche. Freud said our psyche was made up of three parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is the part of you that always wants to enjoy life. It's the source of your more primal urges. So when you sit down to study, it's the id that's telling you that video games would be a way more fun option. On the other hand, the superego is that little angel on your shoulder telling you the right things to do. It's the one fighting with the id and reminding you that that test tomorrow is really important and that you should focus. And the ego is you. It's your conscious thought process, and it's usually caught in a struggle between listening to the id or the superego. Now, the goal of psychoanalysis is to bring these unconscious conflicts into conscious awareness and resolve them through talk therapy. Freud was far from perfect, though. One major flaw in his research approach is that he kind of relied on his own interpretation of case studies, which is just way too subjective to be called scientific. But in spite of this, some of his methods for treating psychological problems are still being used today. Okay, let's move on to the behaviorist perspective. Behaviorism was developed by John Watson, B.F. Skinner, and a man named Ivan Pavlov was also influential. This perspective emphasizes observable and measurable behavior and the role of the environment in shaping behavior. And behaviorism was actually a really extreme reaction to the other fields of psychology at the time. You see, the structuralists and the psychoanalysts were pretty busy looking inwards to learn about the mind. The behaviorists thought this was completely unscientific because it can't really be measured. Back then, they didn't have brain scanners. They basically thought that if you can't see it and you can't measure it, then it's not scientific. And the thing that behaviorists could see was behavior. So according to this approach, all human behavior is learned through a process called conditioning. And conditioning happens when a behavior is either reinforced or punished. So if you reward someone, they're more likely to do the behavior again. Punish them, and you'll decrease the likelihood of them repeating that behavior again. Kind of like how you'd train a dog, but for people. And there are different kinds of conditioning, like operant conditioning and classical conditioning, but we're going to save that for another unit. Okay, one last comparison between these two perspectives. Both of them are still used in therapy today. Psychoanalysis is often used in long-term therapy to kind of help people resolve deeper inner conflicts. And behaviorism is used in short-term therapy to modify specific behaviors or help with phobias or anxiety. All right, those are the basics of the psychoanalytic perspective and the behaviorist perspective. In our next video, we'll look at the humanistic perspective and Gestalt psychology.